Okay, I want to get into a few of the advanced features in our item list printing mode. In the first video, you'll see it on our YouTube channel. I get into the basics of using, our item list print mode screen. Now, for those of you that want to get into a few more things that are a little bit more subtle that this screen can do, I want to show you, like for example, we get requests where people want to have something on the label that's not in QuickBooks, it's not going to be on any orders, it's just not in the data, but they want to have like a prompted user input. We have a column here that's like a configurable column that you can use for data entry. So in the previous video I showed you how you can synchronize your items so that they appear in our software for printing, and you can print to your label printer. You can make design templates of any size using any one of a number of different pieces of information. But let's say you're past all that, you got that working, you want to use some other features we've got here. In the item list settings screen, you can set a column, and let's say you want to call this like batch. So you want your users to put in a batch number before we print, right? So you just change that column. Now you have an entry field here where that data can be made to be put onto the label. So you could just select edit. It takes a moment to kind of synchronize, but you can put in a batch number, and you can print that, and that'll appear on the label. Now, the way we get that to appear on the label is you have to put a field on your label design for that. So let's open up the designer. I'll just show you briefly just an example of how that can be done. So we'll open up our sample label for item list mode. We'll add a text field, and if we go in here, we select as the data source entry 1. Now what that means is that you can rename that field. We renamed it to batch, but to us it's just entry 1. So we'll just call this batch, and we can just put in some test data and that'll be on the label. You can use any font size you want, save. So now in this place, the batch number that you enter in our grid is going to appear there on the label, and we'll print there. So that's a way to get some piece of information onto the label. It's not in QuickBooks, but you want to enter it in just before printing. That's an entry field. We can support that. So we'll save this label, close the designer, show you a couple more things here in the item list printing screen here. Now, a lot of people say we want to be able to put the bin location onto the label. Now, there's a few ways to do that. What we've elected to do is, chances are if it's got a bin location, it's an item that's been brought into inventory. If you have the inventory features in QuickBooks, we can read those records for where that item is in your stock. So if you have it received into a bin using the QuickBooks bin value, then we can read those inventory records and pull that in. I'll show you that. So if we select, let's say, these first two, if I say get bin, okay, it's going to read where those are in the inventory. Here this one has 3 bin locations. So if you want to put the bin location onto the label, we can do that with one little step here right before you print, where we'll read the inventory records, and you can actually have that bin. Now most people will receive and put it in one bin location, but if you are storing things in a bunch of different places for an item, you might have it in multiple locations. So if so, we can read that out of the inventory bin records in the inventory records out of QuickBooks. Okay, so the other screen that we have, well, let's just stick with, we got one more feature here I want to show you. So we've done the entry. Now what we can also do is we can read, and you can show on the screen any custom item field that you want to appear in the grid. So if you say, okay, I want to use this other field now as the field to appear in the grid in QuickBooks, then you can make that appear in the grid, and we'll read that data in. I don't happen to have that populated right now, but we'll display the data for that custom item field in the grid. Now, you can also print that data, but sometimes it's useful to just know what that value is from one of your custom item fields, so that you can kind of decide, which one of these you want to print. So that's a pretty subtle feature, but it's useful in some cases. Now, we also have, for printing strictly using QuickBooks Items now, you can use the single item print screen, okay? And this is more of a like enter it in and print kind of a mode. Now you can see here we pulled in, the locations. Now you can see here there was also some unassigned locations, but in the other screen we filtered that to just show the 3 actual locations. But if you wanted to, have that be the bin that appears on the label, you can select that. It's also kind of nice to know, okay, where do I have this in stock? But we can, we're pulling in that bin data, so you can, see which one has it. You can see the warehouse, how many are on hand for that item, so you maybe know how many to print and things like that. So that's in the single item label print screen. This is a useful screen if, for some reason, if you also have like an item, let's say you have one of them labeled with a barcode and you want to make more barcode labels, you can actually scan into this window here with your little hand scanner, scan a barcode, and if it's already an item in QuickBooks, we'll pull it up and pull up all this data on it, let you print, how many you want to print to the printer. You can also put a quantity onto the label by adding that into your label design, in case you wanted the label to itself to say, let's say 500, if it's bags of 500 or something on the label. So again, to kind of recap, this is the item list printing mode in QuickBooks if you were trying to print labels just using the QuickBooks items list. And we try to steer people towards using our main window, not the item list mode, because it's more powerful. You can do 25 or 100 items at a time. But if you have miscellaneous labels you need to print labels for, and the only place you've got them in QuickBooks is maybe in the items list, then this screen is very useful. Please look at our video number 1 on item list screen printing to get kind of the basics of how we synchronize items and bring it into this screen to begin with. So hope this is helpful. We can modify this if we needed to add some other features for you to use with Label Connector. You can see here we're also showing just various quantities, of how many are on hand and on purchase orders and things like that, so you can decide how many to print if you want. And we can also edit the quantity to print right here. And we showed that in the first video, but basically, if, in case you're not going to always print 1, you might need to print like 25 labels, so you can edit the quantity to print right there. You can also do that in the single item print mode, right here. So hope this is helpful. Just digging into a little bit more detail in the item list print mode for Label Connector from AccuWare for QuickBooks. Thanks.